Welcome to Pattern and Craft. I'm Courtney, and in today's video I would love to show you how to make this beautiful cable for knitting. This is a fairly simple cable to create, even if it has sort of a complex look. It is only created with a 2-row repeat, so you only need to memorize what to do on the front of the work and what to do on the back of the work. I will also provide a full written instructions for you to screenshot if you would like to refer to that and not have to memorize at all. But it's also good because with a lot of cables, you have to count how many rows you've done before you do a cable twist, whereas this is just working one set of stitch instructions on the front of the work and another on the back. This is very similar to another cable that I also have a video for. This is the French braid cable. I called it that because it resembles a French braid. This cable reminds me of a sort of braided bread loaf, so I called it the baguette cable. This one is worked the same way, just doing one stitch pattern on the front and one on the back, but this is worked over 3 stitches, whereas this cable is worked over 4 stitches. So you can cast on as many stitches as you want and use whatever other stitches in addition to your cable as you would like. But for the cable itself, it requires 4 stitches. And here I have worked 4 stitches of my cable and 2 extra stitches in between them to create a reverse stockinette. And reverse stockinette, all that is stockinette worked on the back side so that on the front side it is all purls. And that's a great stitch to use with cables because then it makes the cables sort of bump out from the work and more raised and more defined. So feel free to cast on however many stitches you would like for your sample. I am going to just demonstrate the cable itself. I will assume that those watching this video will already know basic knitting as far as, knits and purls and stockinette and those types of things. So I will just be demoing the cable itself. So I'll be starting on the reverse of the work. I feel that this stitch pattern works best when it is started on the wrong side of the work. So we will be doing row 1 is a wrong side row. And I will be working my edge stitch and my stockinette stitch, and I will meet you here when we get to the 4 cable stitches. All right, the stitch pattern for a cable is fairly simple. We're going to be starting with a purl 1. My purls do look different from the average, so just ignore that or go watch my thumb purling video. But any purl will do, just purl 1. And then we are going to slip purlwise with yarn in front for 2 stitches. So slip and slip. And we already have our yarn forward from purling, so that's perfect because we want this yarn in front when we slip. Next is just one more purl stitch. And that's the whole stitch pattern for our wrong side row of our cable. I'm going to show you that one more time. And I know that I am demonstrating this in continental knitting. That is the style that I knit in, but it will work with English style or whatever style knitting you do. Just follow the voice prompts and the stitch pattern. Even if your knitting looks different, it's the same stitches. All right, here we are again at another cable. So we will purl 1, slip 2 with yarn in front, and purl 1. And I just worked my in-between stitches, and one last time, here is that stitch pattern. We have purl 1, slip 2 purlwise with yarn in front, and purl 1. And that is it for the wrong side row, row 1 of our stitch pattern. Next, I will show you what to do on the front side of the work. All right, now we're on the front of the work. I've worked my edge stitch and my 2 stitches of reverse stockinette. And now we can do the stitch pattern for the right side row, which is row 2. So this will be simply a right twist stitch with a knit, then purl. I know that sounds complicated, but I'll show you what to do for that. And then we will do a left twist stitch, purl, then knit. So we're basically working 2 stitches and we're going to be crossing them over one another. This is a cable, so that's what cabling is stitches switching places. So for this one, we're going to do a right twist or a right cross or a right cable, however you like to think of it. And this second stitch will be crossing to the right over this stitch. So there's several ways to do this. I will show you the traditional way first, and then I will show you later on my preferred method. So this is sort of the more normal way to cable without a cable needle. So we will insert our right needle into the second stitch on the left needle in the front. Remove 2 stitches from the left hand needle, and you'll see that one is caught with the right needle and one is floating behind. And we simply catch that one that was floating behind on our left needle. And when we pull our needles apart, you can see that that is crossing over in front to the right. So right twist or right cross. Now we will knit this first stitch. So I'm going to put it back on the left hand needle and knit it. But then for the second stitch, instead of knitting it, we want to bring our yarn forward and purl that second stitch. There we go. That is a right twist knit purl. So now we're going to do the opposite of that. We're going to do a left twist purl knit. So leave your yarn to the front because we're going to purl first. But before we purl, we do need to cross these 2 stitches. So we need this first stitch to go to the left and cross over the second stitch. And when we cross to the left, we will kind of do a similar thing to what we just did, but first we need to move these 2 stitches to the right hand needle. So I simply slipped 2 stitches that are not worked yet to the right hand needle. Now I will insert my left hand needle into the second stitch on the right hand needle in the front of the stitch. I'll do a similar movement as before where I will remove the 2 stitches, but this time I'm removing the right hand needle. And then I'm catching the floating stitch with that right hand needle. And when I pull them apart, you can see that stitch that's in front is crossing to the left. So left twist. And now we're going to purl this first stitch. So I put it back on the needle purlwise. And then we purl it. And then move our yarn to the back and knit the next stitch. And that might seem like a lot of instructions, but once you understand what's happening, basically we just change the order of the stitches, knit then purled, then we change the order of the stitches, purled then knit. And that's it for every right side row. I'm going to then do my in-between stitches, which are purls since I'm doing reverse stockinette. And I'm going to show you that a couple more times. I'll show you one more time the normal way, and then I'll show you a right twist in my preferred method. So we're just going to repeat what I just showed, but it's, sometimes you have to see it a few times. So we're going to right twist, knit purl. So start with our yarn and back to knit. We're going to insert our right hand needle into the second stitch on the left hand needle in the front of the stitch. Remove 2 stitches from the left hand needle, so you pull the left hand needle out of 2 stitches. Then we catch this little floating stitch with our left hand needle. And then we can see that when we pull those back apart, this stitch crossed to the right. And we're going to slip it back onto the needle purlwise, and then we will knit that first stitch and then purl the second stitch. So we crossed them to the right, knit, then purled. Now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to cross to the left and purl then knit. So leave your yarn forward for purling. Slip both of these stitches purlwise to the right hand needle, and we're going to mimic that movement of crossing the stitches, but because we're crossing left, we need to do it on the right hand needle. So insert your left hand needle into the second stitch on the right hand needle in the front of the stitch, pull out the right hand needle, and then pick up that floating stitch with the right hand needle. And now we have the first stitch crossing to the left over, and now it has become the second stitch. And we want to work this stitch still, so we're going to put it back on the left hand needle to work it. But if you put the left hand needle behind like this, we're ready to purl, and that is what we need to do. We need to purl that first stitch, move our yarn back, and knit the second stitch for a right twist purl knit. There we go, that's it. One more time. Work our stockinette in between if that's what you're doing, or whatever stitches you are doing for your sample. And then one more time. This time I'm going to show you how to do the right twist knit purl the way I prefer, so that we don't have to have any floating stitches. So to do that, we can insert our needle as if we're going to knit two together. Remove both stitches from the left hand needle, reinsert the left hand needle into the first stitch on the right hand needle knitwise. Since we removed it knitwise and put it back knitwise, it is not twisted. However, this stitch is twisted because if I put it back on purlwise, it's twisted. But if I put it back with our needles inserted ready to knit the back loop, that untwists it and you can knit the stitch right away. Now we bring the yarn forward and purl. I hope that is understandable for what I just did, but it makes it a lot quicker and less fiddly. Now we have to do a left twist purl knit, and that one I do not know a different way, so we do have to slip to the right needle, cross the stitches, then we purl, then we knit. And there we go. There we go, that is it. So basically every time we work the back of this cable, we are slipping the two center stitches. And every time we work the front of this cable, we are knitting those slipped stitches and bringing them over and out from the middle to the edge, which creates this beautiful braided effect. And then that little purl stitch creates a little bump in the middle of the cable that gives it a little bit of extra texture, as well as making it a little bit 3D, but in a different way than traditional cables look. So I like that kind of variation on the cable, and I hope you do too, and I hope you try it out, and I hope you try out the braided cable. I also have that video available. I'll leave a link in the description. And check out my playlist of knitting tutorials for other knitting stitches, as well as knitting techniques and tips. I hope you try this out. Let me know if you do, and leave a comment if you have any questions. I'll see you next time, and happy crafting!